looking for a committed relationship, you go and tell all of your girlfriends or boyfriends, that's the right thing to do. We need committed relationships. If you're at a stage in your life where you want to experiment and experience and maybe try a different model than the traditional relationship model, you're going to go around and tell everyone, this is the right way to go. You guys don't see, you're missing this and this and that, right? Everyone is trying to justify to you to behave like them, not for you. It's for them, it's for their ego. Because if you behaved like them, you start to reassure them that what they're doing is they're not wasting their heartbeats, right? Now, because of that, your only task in life is to define, yes, you need to be a superhero, but what hero? What am I spent my entire 30s, and I said that publicly, you could see it on the internet. When people asked me as a senior executive at Google, what's your dream in life? What's your life purpose? Which, by the way, is a big lie. There is no life purpose. But, what's your life purpose? I would say my life's purpose is to help startups in emerging markets of the world create technologies analogous to Google. Okay? And I spent, because that was my view of my life's purpose, I spent a disproportionate amount of my life doing it. Okay, sitting with startups, coaching entrepreneurs, talking about investments, understanding the cycle of money. And yeah, some of them were trying to create things that will save the world and not change our health profiles or whatever. Most of them were thinking of another photo sharing app. Okay, and the truth is, again, context in that case is missing on many, many levels. The most important level is, this is not me. The fact that I'm so good at it doesn't make it me.
Yeah, the fact that I'm so good at it doesn't make it me. That I think, that feeds, I think, into education as well, actually.
Oh yeah.
Where there's a set amount of prioritized subjects, right? And I guess I could speak from experience of the medical profession. I've said this before. There are many, many doctors who I know who are not happy being doctors.
Mm-hmm.
They simply went into medicine because they were straight A students at the worshipped subjects at school, and therefore, because I can get A's in biology, chemistry, physics, whatever, therefore there's these 3 or 4 jobs that I should probably do,
yeah,
right?
The highest paying jobs.
Yeah, and so you get into the situation where, again, it's because what you're surrounded by. Guess what you're really talking about here is an intentional life. It's a life where you have decided, or you have thought about, actually, what is it that makes me tick?
Yeah.
Or when I spoke, on your podcast recently about alignment, one of, my 3 legs of this core happiness store, this idea that, are we aligned in how we're living? Because it sounds like when you were at Google X, as great as that job was, as great as the people were around you, it sounds as though you weren't aligned in terms of who you really are.
I was good at it. I loved it. I made a difference. Okay? But is it really me? I hosted, just a couple of weeks ago on my podcast, I hosted a lady called Eleanor Salman, who basically was a very senior person in the UNESCO. And suddenly woke up one morning, decided to take 12 months off and go travel the world and learn a new dance every month. Okay? Ended up, of course, living basically a life she dreamt of, and so she continued and learned 18 dances to instructor level, if you want. And now her life is entirely around dance. Okay? Now, the society will say, are you mad? You have a senior job in a senior organization, and theoretically you're making a difference to the world. And the question is, so what? Right? I was good at being chief business officer at Google X, but I can guarantee you there are at least 100,000 people living in America alone, where Google X was, that would do that job better than me. Okay? But what I'm now doing, by the way, it doesn't matter if I'm good at it or better at it than another person. It is me. It's what I love to do. And by the way, it pays for my $4 t-shirts. So where's the issue? Why are we chasing what we don't need by paying with what we need and the only asset we have? How stupid is it to live your life to make another dollar, when you don't need that dollar, by paying for it with a heartbeat that you need because you put it and it never comes back. You spend it and it never comes back. And with your stress, with your unhappiness, with your disconnection, with your loneliness, when is it that people will sit down and say, "Where's my dream? What am I looking for?" And I do that, Raman, at so many levels that shock you. Okay, my definition of my relationship with my daughter, my definition of my romantic relationships, my definition with with my podcast, what I want to do with my podcast, with what I want to do with my books, it's all a moment of reflection, followed by a definition of a dream, a real dream, not an implanted dream in my head.
Yeah.
And then an attempt to achieve it. That's life.
Yeah, there's so much there though. A moment of reflection. Reflection implies that you are considering your life, you're being intentional about your life, you're being conscious about the decisions you're making, which I think is very, very important. But this other idea is sort of niggling away in the back of my head here, which is this idea that this person you spoke to, this lady on your podcast, and she had this senior job, and you were saying in theory she's making a difference to the world. Now, I've never explored this in my head yet, so bear with me as I try and articulate it. If you're doing a job that is actually helping people, let's say you're doing a job that's making a difference, yet it's not your true passion, it's not something you enjoy, right? It's not something that is truly aligned with who you are you actually contributing to the well-being of yourself and the wider world because you're not aligned, yet you are on the surface helping people? And that's a really interesting idea because ultimately, and I want to talk about your son Ali very shortly, but the things he said to you when he was 14, these ideas that all you can ever make is that change in yourself and in your little world, and that little world might become bigger. It's kind of like if you're being disingenuous in terms of what you're doing, even if you think it's helping, in the totality of the human experience, is that potentially problematic?
I know exactly where your heart is coming from. You know, our common friend, the wonderful Rupi, the doctor's kitchen, right? Rupi is a medical doctor working. He worked in emergencies. So he was really saving lives, right? And he's good at it. And then he, like you, I think, with a lot of what you do, decides, no, I think preventing issues is much more interesting. His passion, I mean, he's an amazing cook, right? And his passion is to say there is so much health, there is so much wholesomeness in actually telling people to live differently so they don't have to end up in emergency. Do you know what I mean? I think you're completely aligned because I know where your heart is. What you're doing with this, what I'm doing with Slow-Mo, and as we reach millions of people at the prevention point, not at the intervention point, okay, is that define helping, because this is the key. The key is we think that there are defined molds in which you will be making a difference to the world, like Google X or building new technology. You're making a difference to the world. Yeah, but if it's not you, and you are somewhere else, you'll experience a very interesting curve. You'll be going from here, this much difference to the world, to not really effective at all, because you're building now your new profile, your new skill profile, your new experiences. And then if it's really you zoom back up higher than where you were, and you have a much higher impact on the planet, on the people around you, because you're no longer portraying a skill. You're now portraying your soul. Okay? And when you do what you do, I promise you, I know you're an amazing doctor. But part of your soul, Ramdan, which you and I feel when we have coffee, is you're a human. You connect, you care, right? And you're so good at communicating very complex problems. Yeah, there are many